Hey everyone, we're back on Create with Kate, and I have a fantastic guest today who I've known for, probably 5 years now at least. And we met on Instagram and then ran into each other at a coffee shop one day and, became friends. And here we are in the same industry, helping people with personal branding. And she's also a speaker, she's a photographer, and she's a mom, a wife. She's just amazing. So please welcome Ati Greenspun to the podcast.
Hello, my friend. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. This is going to be so much fun. So we have so much to cover. So it's like, where do we even begin? But why don't we start with just showing up online and what do you experience with your clients as far as like their biggest, obstacles with that?
Mindset. So what we were talking earlier, right?
Yeah.
Out of camera, I see like people think, I don't know tech. I don't know how to use a camera.
Right.
I don't know what to say. And some of that, yes, come back to strategy. But the biggest hurdle is mindset.
Right. You could have all the strategy in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset, then, I think you can't show up authentically. So then it makes it very difficult to actually connect with people.
Well, and that's even if you actually get to show up.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are telling themselves like, oh, I'm to this, I'm to that, like, especially for women.
Yeah.
Like if we want to like really talk about the people that I help in general.
Do you help mostly women?
99.9% of my people.
So this will be really interesting because the majority of people that I coach are men.
Ooh,
right?
yes.
Because of Ryan. So I'll have a perspective on coaching men, and you can share the perspective on coaching women. That'll be really interesting.
And this is so cool because I truly believe there is definitely a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why when you asked me, I said mindset is like women, we are in so many ways conditioned that we have to be certain way. And this has nothing to do with actually who you are. If you are too shy, you're too loud, you're too big, you're too tall, you're too this, you're too that. And every woman has heard that in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
So then when they want to show up authentically, they don't even know who they are. They don't even know what they're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Like, I think with both men and women, what I find a lot is like, people don't know what makes them special. They don't know what their voice is really. And when you go to build a personal brand, because that's what everyone's doing now, right? We know that like attention
that's the way
is
to
the
go.
new currency.
Yeah.
So people say, okay, I need to do this. And it typically starts because they want to, monetize, right? Or grow their business. But you then have to face yourself.
Yeah.
Like, who am I? What do I stand for? What makes me unique and special? Like, what sets me apart from the competition?
Okay.
And people struggle to do that.
People can't even answer that. Like, and I'm truth. That's how I actually became a personal branding coach, because it was my own experience through struggling to actually stand out.
Okay.
Like it was like,
tell us that story.
So I'll tell you a little bit. So I don't know if you know this. I think you do.
You were a photographer. I knew.
I was a bartender. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. So can I tell you that story?
Yeah.
And I actually, there is a point to this story because it wasn't until I had one of my mentors really challenge me that I realized how it all came together. So I'm actually going to go back.
Tell me how it came
So I was a world champion flair bartender.
Oh my
the
gosh.
ones that flip the bottles.
I can
like,
see it.
And I can send you a video so you know what we're talking about. So like, I was brought to the U.S. because I was really well known in the world. There weren't that many girls actually doing that at the time.
Yeah.
And so I worked at one of the casinos here on the strip for 16 years.
Wow.
I went to school for photography because it was a passion. And then when I became a mom, I was like, screw bartending.
Yeah.
I want to be home with my kid.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. And I was a portrait photographer at the time, whatever. So for about five 5.5 minutes, I was in network marketing. But this is what happened, though. This is what happened because I was teaching women to actually build these businesses. And I remember, like, they would show up on Facebook or whatever, like, drink my shake or do this, and I was like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing. Like, no, like, who are you? Why are you doing this? Like, and I remember I started to dig on how they would build a personal brand while I was building mine. And now this is the thing, though, it was coming very natural to me. I didn't even realize I was building a personal brand. It wasn't until like what I was doing was working. Right? Because I was a triathlete, I was a bartender, I would show up online, I was teaching people, whatever, and then I was like, okay, what the fuck am I doing that is working and it's not working for them? And then I started realizing. So there was a moment where I was like, okay, network marketing is not for me. I want to go all in with my photography. And at this point, I was already doing personal branding photography. And I started, well, how do I stand out? How do I make myself different? And I didn't know. I didn't know what was special about me. I didn't know what I was bringing to the table. And I had to dig so deep. And it was all inner work. It was all validation of who am I? Like, why am I different? And the one thing that I realized is I couldn't see it because I'm inside the battle. Right? I'm inside the battle. So I always tell my clients, I'm like, listen, my job here is to ask you questions and to help you put the mirror up so you can see your own shine. Right? So we can find what are the things that you love talking about? What are the things that actually do make you different? Well, what I realized that is my gift, actually, to see somebody, and it's probably yours too.
Mine too,
right? Like, I see somebody and I can see their whole social media, what they can talk about, how they can monetize it, like how they can create courses, how they can do this, they can do that. They can't see that. And I get it because that was me. But what I realized, though, is that the work of us as personal branding coaches, people think is the strategy. And the strategy, yes, you have to write it down. Okay, what are you going to talk about? What do you stand for? We want to have guidelines. But in order for you to actually go and even make a post about that, you need to actually believe that's you.
Right. So that's where the inner work comes in. That's why I always say building a personal brand, it's really you becoming self-aware. And you learning how to love and appreciate yourself. So many of us, we have been conditioned to, like, we don't know how to celebrate ourselves because we think that that's bad. We think that you're conceited or, right?
I don't know you, but my mom used to say, like, don't brag. I would be like, woo, and don't be braggy. Don't be braggy. And this is the thing, though. Like, we actually do this inside of my program right now. We celebrate each other, and we celebrate every single, like, how many new followers you got this week? 5. I don't care. We're going to celebrate. Imagine if you had a store. This is, everybody talks about this. If you would have a store and you had, I don't know, 50 people coming into your store, you would be like, oh my God, I need to hire people. We're growing, we're blowing up. But you get 50 new followers and you're like, oh, there are 50 followers. Hello?
Like, it's a big deal. Like,
it's a big fucking deal.
It's when you... I get so frustrated about this too because it's like they're people.
Okay, that was I was side. It's and people. The other side of the screen, there is 50 people that are actually spending their time looking at your shit.
Right.
And this is the thing. This is the other thing, and I don't know. I'm sure you think the same. I know it. Which is, are you actually barking to the right tree? Like, because people are like, followers. I'm like, okay, I personally don't have 1 million followers. We are just like getting to 4,000 followers. But my followers are my audience. My followers are the women that are building businesses. My followers are the women that have the pull for more. And that right now they're feeling like they're the best kept secret, right? So I always say, like, there was an evolution also of my own personal brand. At the beginning, I was working with a lot of really beginner business owners. And now that has evolved because I have evolved. And the woman that I can pull, right? I can pull their shine. She already did all that basic work. Now she wants to truly stand out.
No, I love that. I think that's beautiful. I mean, I there's nothing more fun than helping someone see what makes them special. So on my end, with most of the men, right, that I work with, they always want to go just straight to business, right?
Yeah.
Which is typical, right? So they want to talk about what makes them credible, and we have to do that, sure. But the difference is with someone that has a powerful personal brand is they talk about their expertise and they talk about what they've done to help people professionally, but they also talk about what matters to them personally.
And they tie it
together
to their own story.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I just had a conversation.
And their struggles, their failures, not just the success.
Okay. And something interesting here is men want to go there all the time, like to what makes them credible. Women want to go to inspiration.
Yes.
Women, because
we're more nurturing and right.
But also it's safer. Right? Yeah. So you post about like, you go girl, like, or quotes, or you even showing what you're reading, even if you're trying really hard to like put yourself out there, inspiring somebody is noble, right? Like feels noble for a woman, but like for her to speak her authority, it feels masculine. And yes, there is a masculine energy to it, but we have to navigate both.
Sure.
Right? And I think that this is very interesting to see how like men or women do this different. Like I literally have to call out clients all the time. I'm like, this content is great, but you cannot live only in this type of content,
right? Because
you're here to move a business forward. Unless you are already a billionaire and you're just here to inspire the world, and which I love. Good for you. But at the end of the day, we're also here to change the world and make money all at the same time.
Right. And I think women, so this is the other difference between men and women. Men, I don't think they feel guilty about making money or asking for money or demanding, respect and someone to pay them, right?
Yeah.
I think women tend to feel that they can't talk about like an offer or this or that, because then it's, I don't know. They just don't feel comfortable.
Okay,
with that,
I'm
right?
going to go back to kind of what we talked earlier, like outside of camera. Last year, I had a huge year.
Yeah.
And some of the work that I have done personally was to unapologetic talk about when I'm making money, when I'm not making money, what is working, what is not working, not only with my clients, but even in my podcast, right? Like to be like, hey, we had, I don't know, a $60,000 launch or a $100,000 launch, but this is what it takes to get there. Hey, we did have a flop launch. This is how I pivoted.
Let's talk about the launch. Like, I think that would be a great thing. Like, can you share like your first launch, or I don't know how many have you even done?
Well, I've done a ton because do you know what a live launch is? I do a training, right, online. We invite people.
They have to sign up and they have to be
they have to sign up. They have to be there.
If they don't come live, they can't get it.
Well, like depending. We have toyed with a lot of things.
Okay.
So, but let's actually go back to my first ever launch, right?
Okay, let's do that.
Because this goes back to my story that we started earlier. So I was a bartender. I was in network marketing for like 5.5 seconds.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting is I signed up during the pandemic. Hello, everybody has a pandemic story.
I know.
During the pandemic, what happened was a lot of my photography clients, I was already shooting personal brand, where, okay, I have all these photos, but now I can't really show what I'm doing in the world. Like, we're not going anywhere. Like, how do I use them? What do I post about? Whatever. And that's how the whole personal branding coaching started. So I started a Facebook group and I created community and I went live. And I remember for like the first 3 months of the pandemic, I went live every day with an idea for them to post. So I would go live for like 10 or 15 minutes and I would be like, hey, how about today we all show up on social media and we talk about X.
Right.
And I did it, but they did it too.
Okay.
And then people were like, well, how can I work with you?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you were just trying to like offer some
and I was like, it was a very crazy time for all of us.
Sure.
And for me, I'm very extroverted. I'm a manifesting generator in human design. So I needed to keep myself busy. I actually was one of the people that actually did not go out of her house for the first 45 days.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know.
Me too. And I was on TikTok.
And I was
had
like,
no clue what I was doing. I was just having the time of my life.
and I was having so much fun. And my husband was like, you are crazy. And
I was like, I need to go hang out with my followers.
Yeah, me too.
Because I was making friends online.
I was making friends. I felt like I had a community. My Facebook group was like growing, like by the droves. And I was like, okay. So I remember I signed up. Actually, I think you know her, Kelly Roach. She spoke. Well, so I signed up for one of her live launches.
Okay.
I signed up for her mentorship.
Okay.
And I learned to live launch. And I had a coach in that program that she was like, Ati, you're just amazing. You can see, because we would go on the calls.
Yeah.
And I would tell people, oh, but you can talk about this and you can talk about that.
Yeah.
And the coach was like, you're not seeing this. But you have the vision for other people. And this is not you're making it up. You're actually truly see people.
Yes.
And I was like,
I love this.
This woman is fucking crazy.
No, that's, but
and
it's
then
true.
talked to my
totally
husband.
get this.
I talked to my husband and he's like, but that's you. The same, because, okay, so even with photography, what I was doing, which nobody was doing at the time, I would sit down with my clients and I was like, okay, tell me about your process. Tell me about how you actually work with clients. And I would be, okay,
so you could capture that, right?
Well, because for me, when I was doing portraits, I was doing storytelling. That was my whole niche when I was doing portraits. I would sit down with a family and I would ask them, this is how you realize how nothing is wasted, everything comes together.
Right.
I would sit down with a family. I'm like, what is your hobby? What do you like doing? Like, what do you guys, where do you guys love going to eat? And we would create photos in the places that they love. I had people bringing like collection tracks, like those, you know, that they would put in a show and do photos like that. I had taken families like to Mount Charleston because skiing was their thing. Like, so I was doing storytelling with these people. So when I started doing personal branding, I developed my own process that was, okay, your process, like how do we tell the story of the transformation you offer? Can we show people that you work with? Not like in a testimonial pose way, but in a story. And then how do we showcase your personality through all of this, right? So we do like different locations. And so it was more like the creative direction.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to take your photo, and that's it. So when this coach told me, but you see people, like you are helping people brand themselves. And I remember she said that, and I felt something on my stomach. There was something that I can't even explain till this day. I was like, oh, how exciting.
Yes.
Oh my God, I can do this for a living. But the other thing, this world opened up for me, because as a photographer, you can only photograph. I mean, you could start a studio, you could do all these things, but as a photographer, you can only help so many people, or at least the way I was doing it. And literally, she gave me that story, and I started brainstorming names. She gave me this idea, right? And I started brainstorming names for, I wanted to create a course. Like in that moment it was a course. So I'm going to do a course. And I wrote down, I'm like, okay, what do I ask my people? What do I do with them when, you know, when they're like, okay, I don't know what to post on social media. So I remember I started writing down, and then be you came to mind. Like what people tell me all the time is like, you're so you. You are so you. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And I remember I was journaling, and I was like, I own my own shit. Like when I'm good at it, when I'm not good at it, whatever. And I'm always like striving forward. And I came up with the name Be You, and Be You brand. And that is the name now of my academy. That started as a 3-month course. I had no fucking clue what I was doing. I'm going to tell you right now. I just was so courageous. And I did this live launch. I put it out there. I started like literally was voice texting people. Like, hey, I am doing a course. It's going to be 5 days. It's going to be like how to show you how to show up on social media. Right. And at the time is now like we teach so much more. But like, and I think that I had, I don't know, like 20 something people in there,
which is pretty good.
Which was amazing. We sold 3 spots. Those became my testimonials. Now I did it again, and it kept growing. And now we have what is called the Be You Brand Academy. And that went from a 3-month course to a 6-month course. And then now it's a year.
That's amazing.
And the reason for that, it was I was witnessing my own growth, and I was like, nobody becomes totally empowered in 3 months. They're consuming knowledge. And then another thing that happened was people were renewing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So when they started renewing, I remember I asked, okay, what is making you renew? Like, I love it. I love it from a business standpoint, but they're like, well, we know what we need to do, but now we need help doing it.
Implementing.
And I was like, wow, interesting.
It's like accountability, essentially.
Well, actually, my framework, which is called SEMA, is strategy, identity, marketing, mindset, and accountability.
Yeah.
That's because those are the things that people like. First, you need to have a strategy. Then you need to step into your identity, which is not just colors. Like, for me, it's like really mindset.
It's the belief.
The belief. And the photos and the branding and showing up online and owning it.
Yep.
Right? And then the marketing, because people don't you feel like people are doing the right things in the wrong order?
Yes. I feel like they're so focused on I don't care, who cares about your logo right now? Like, you don't even know who you are.
Right?
You know?
Well, the logo. And then the other thing is, if you think about this, people are starting businesses. Like, they're like, I'm starting my business. I just opened an account on Instagram. That's not a business.
Right.
That is your marketing. That is your visibility, but that's not your business.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? Who do you serve? Like,
and who have you served
exactly.
Right? Like,
right. So I think that people are doing all the right things in the wrong order. And that's what I figure on my own with my photography business. And then again, right, I have done this several times. And this is a caveat. In 2022, I joined a mastermind where we were writing a book, a collective book.
What was, can you share it?
Yes, it's the book is called Living a Legacy. Like,
No, but what was the mastermind?
It's called The Inner Circle with Rebecca Cafiero.
Okay.
And I joined the mastermind, and I remember when we were writing the book, she was like, I kept going back to my story with my mom. I have a very convoluted like relationship with her, and a lot of like not feeling seen and heard, and that's
what you help people do. Isn't that interesting?
Well, and that's also the inner work that I had to do, right? Because I didn't feel worthy. I remember asking the same questions that my clients are asking me now, that they're like, who's gonna listen to me? Like, why would they listen to me and not somebody else? Or right? So like, I remember I was going back just to that, and she was like, there is something deeper. Well, this is the thing. My first business ever was actually, I own a bartending school in Argentina with 3 friends. I was already flipping bottles on TV when I was like 19 years old. The legal drinking age in Argentina is 18, because I get asked this all the time. And I was going to college for hotel management, and that's how I kind of got into the whole industry thing. But this is the thing. This was my job at the school. You're going to freak out. When they would finish, I would sit down with them and I would ask them, okay, where do you want to work? Do you want to work at a speakeasy? Do you want to work at a bar? Do you want to work at a nightclub? Do you want to actually work at a high-end restaurant? And they would tell me, and my job was okay, so we're going to create a resume this way. These are the drinks that you should, like, that I recommend you maybe do. These are the things that you can talk about, and this is probably what you need to wear. I was literally branding people. And 19 years old, and
it's just, it was always in you. I mean, there was probably other things that you did too. I mean, you know, like, even as a kid, I can remember, I don't know if you felt like this, but I can remember when I was a little girl, you know, when you tell people what you want to be when you grow up, you know, and some adults would say, well, you can't make that much money doing that.
Oh, every time.
And it used to really bother me when I would hear that, because I would think like, well, so this is how we're deciding what we're going to be when we grow up, is based on how much money we make. Like, it's not about what we really care about or we're passionate about. And why can't we have money and passion? You know, like, it was just like really bothered me.
For me, I used to say I wanted to be a teacher.
Me too. Yes, and that's when I would get the, you know, you can't make very
everybody
much money.
was like, oh, you're going to starve. You're not going to make any money.
Starve,
And I was like,
but that is what we do now. We teach
and this
in
is
a
the
different
thing.
way. Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably talked a lot about inner child work here in the podcast.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that came from me from doing inner work is like remembering me at 8 years old in front of the mirror, like.
Yes, like just loving yourself and loving life.
Loving life and celebrating and being free. And then there was so much of like, my mom used to send me to like dancing classes, and the teacher was like, she's just too hyper.
Yeah.
She can't take it. Like she can't do it. She's too much. She's too much. Or in school, like she talks too much.
Yep.
Hi bitches, I'm getting paid to like speak. Thank you very much. But like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's like, and that is the work that I'm so passionate about doing with my clients, which is reflecting to them who they truly are. And yes, there is part of that is like them getting better at their craft and being good at what they do. I work with a lot of therapists and with a lot of consultants and coaches of all different like types, which like usually leave corporate.
Yes.
They're amazing at what they do. They've been doing it forever. They used to stand in these boardrooms and talking in front of people, and now they have to do it for themselves, and they're like, I don't know what you say.
Right, because if it was for someone else, then that's a different thing internally for them, right?
Yeah. Well, because they're performing for somebody else and they're not performing for themselves.
Right.
Which is crazy. So I was so challenged by my coach about this, but it was so liberating because what I discovered in that process was I am made for this. And yes, for sure, I have things to learn. I'm going to be learning till the day I die.
Yeah.
But I was born for this. I was born to see what's special on people, and I'm gonna break something.
No, it's okay.
And then kind
pull
of pull it out of them, and then help them put that in a way that makes sense for their business, so they're not struggling.
Right, and they're helping more people.
Yeah.
So it's like it's serving so many people by you helping them, you embracing your gift, and then helping others embrace their gifts. It just spreads, right? It's so much goodness.
You know, last year I had a moment of like, it was this epiphany. I was telling you about my event, like, and this was something, you're gonna think I'm crazy. This came to me on breath work. I was doing breath work.
No, I won't think you're crazy.
And I had this download, and I saw myself on stage, and I saw the women, and I was like, I have to do an event. And I mean, by numbers, if you think about it, like I am not this celebrity, right? Yeah. But we had 73 women in that room.
That's amazing.
We sold out. So I rented the place. The place was supposed to be for 60 people. We sold it out.
Yeah.
And then we ended up like doing it downstairs in the same building.
Okay.
And we had 73 women show up. Only 10 were local.
Wow.
Most people
That's incredible.
Came from all over the country. We had 2 people coming from Europe.
Wow.
Like, and I remember.
Let's just pause and like for everyone to really grasp this for a moment. So you have how many followers on Instagram?
I think I'm like 40 people away from like 4,000 followers.
Okay. So you have less than 5,000 followers on Instagram, but you were able to create that many connections to where people paid for the ticket, paid for the flight, paid for the hotel.
Yeah.
Like people really need to hear that and understand that like you don't have to have tens of thousands of followers.
And actually, I literally just did a podcast episode, the Be You Brand podcast, if you want to go like listen to it, because this is the thing. If you focus on followers, the vanity metric, just the number, and you're trying to get your family, your friends, whoever to follow you, that is not your audience. That's what I was saying, like, are you barking to the right tree?
Right.
You do not need a shit ton of people.
No.
You just need people that are invested in you.
Yes.
You need people that are, yes.
Yeah.
And the right people also are going to resonate with your message.
Yes.
You don't need to, because this is something that probably you get a lot too. Like, oh, but you're an extrovert, or you're pretty, or you're skinny.
Oh yeah, it's easy for you.
And I'm like, okay, can we talk about the fact that English is my second language?
I actually did want to bring that up because when I talk to people that have accents, right? that can
You
be
send them to me and I'll give them the...
But they have an insecurity about that. And I always, and it always baffles me because I'm like, but that makes you stand out, you know?
Well, but actually, let's go back to that because I was not always this confident with my accent.
Okay.
So for me, I was committed. So when I started going live on social media, I would actually practice what I was going to say and I would write it down. And it was almost compulsively, like I would write every word and then I was like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
But writing it though helped me to know exactly what I wanted to say. And I would practice it and then different words would come up and I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And then I actually practiced it in front of the camera. Even though I wasn't going live.
Yeah.
So the first few years, like through the pandemic and stuff like that, there was a lot of learning curves. And I think that people dismiss that. People are like, it's so easy, but you're so extroverted, you're so pretty, it's easy for you, but you have 4,000 followers. Or people are commenting on your post. I'm like, bitch, some posts, not every post gets like, it's...
Right. Well, I say that all the time. And, you know, I think I made a video on this too about Ryan. If you look at how many posts that he has posted, right? It's like, I don't know, it's probably like 6,000 now. So I always like point that out to people like, okay, how many posts? Because a lot of people don't even have 1,000 posts, right? So it's, okay, you have this expectation that you should be at this point, right? But how much have you given to others? Like this is a give and then receive. Like you don't just show up for a few videos and here's this audience that's going to love you.
And okay, this is so interesting that you're saying this because I actually had a call with a client. And I was like, wow, this is going to be an interesting call because I was doing an audit because she was like, hey, I'm doing this and it's not working and blah, blah. So I went and did an audit and I was like, oh, okay. So we get on the call and I'm like, girl, like I understand the effort that you're putting. So your perceived effort, this is just like sports. Your perceived effort is so high, but I want you to look at your account like if it wasn't your account. I want you to like forget the fact that it has your name at the top.
Right.
And I want you to look at the post and I want you to ask you, have you given true value here? How, are you just expecting, because she's doing like some sort of like workshops and stuff like that. And I'm like, how many people do you think that saw? Like you're less than 20 posts in.
Right. Yeah.
So 20 posts, maybe your people saw 3.
Right.
And there is this reality check that people think that we get to these spots where like you and I, oh my God, I gotta have you on the podcast. We have been following each other. We have been like consistent.
We had how many, you know, maybe I had less than 1,000 probably back then, you know, followers, you know, like
probably me too.
But you still show up.
Showed up. And this is the thing though. I show up even if when nobody's watching. Right. You showed up when nobody's watching. I show up live when 10 people are there, when 2 people are there, when 100 people are there.
Right.
Right? So I'm like, this expectation that it should happen overnight because there is also this, I don't want to say lie, but there is the thing online where like, oh, it can happen quick. It's overnight.
And some people it does, but that's highly unlikely.
But honestly, when people say that, I think that there is other things on the background happening in the best way, right? Either they're running ads or they're coming from another industry and they're bringing the authority. They're bringing, like me, I was nobody, 0.
Yeah.
Like I was like literally a bartender coming out of the Las Vegas Strip. Yeah. Right? So I like when people tell me, oh, this is amazing. Like you're doing so good. Like, you can do it too. Right.
But they have to be willing to suck, number one. Right? Because you do, I mean, you're always improving. You're always learning how to
don't you feel like you still suck?
Yes. Like, I was literally just thinking that. Yeah. Like because you constantly are evolving and changing and the expectation goes up as you know, as you change, right? But you have to be willing to not be perfect and be judged, right? That's another thing when you talk about your audience, right? So if you're going to attract your audience, the right people for you, you will also repel the wrong people.
Okay, I talk about this all the time because this is the thing, especially for people like you and me, that we are comfortable at this point in our lives to being seen.
Yep.
Is like when I show up, I'm like, I think I had a reel that's like, girl, when you show up to your networking event and your elevator pitch is like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And somebody was like, that's so rude.
No, it's honest.
And I didn't tell her, but I was like, bye, Felicia. Like, you're not my people. Like, if you're gonna
if you want to grow, you have to handle the truth, right?
Well, and there were so many people. I was like, oh, girl, you're talking to me. You're speaking to my car, blah, blah, blah. Like, people were laughing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm like, obviously, I'm not the coach for you.
Right.
If you're gonna get your feelings hurt, because I'm nice and I'm kind, but I'm very truthful. And I'm gonna tell you because I don't care if you like me. I want you to grow.
Well, that is something I learned, that accountability is love. So if I'm just telling you what you want to hear, I'm not helping you.
What the fuck are you paying me?
Yeah, I'm not helping you. And so you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to not post, just whatever you think, trust the people that you hire.
Yeah.
And trust what your audience, I don't care how big or small, what they're telling you, because you can see the trends of what they like
what
to
they
see from
like.
you.
Well, and one of the things that we talked earlier, right, is like people, like women tend to live in this like inspirational world. And what I tell them is like, the moment you start talking about how you can help people, which is selling, right? While serving, but you have to talk about your offer. You have to talk about what you bring to the table, why they need to be there, whatever it is. It's going to get uncomfortable and you're going to hear crickets. Yeah, and that's okay. Oh my God.
Right.
You're going, and that's okay. That's why.
Don't be discouraged.
But that's why it's strategically, right? You sandwich. You do like stuff that gets a lot of like, oh my God, yes, girl. Like I call them yes, girl post. But like, and then you post about your offer, because the most likely people are not asking questions.
Right.
It's your job to answer their question through your content.
Yes. And that's a great tip. And this is what I tell my clients. If you're a coach or consultant, one of the best things that you can do, a lot of times they record their calls, right? They're frequently on Zoom and stuff. Record your calls and make note of all the questions that they're asking you, because you could just turn around and make videos on that.
So, oh my God. Okay. So it's so funny I say that. This is going to be $1 million tip for your listeners too. So what we're doing now is, I call it like coaching to content. Like literally, like it wasn't my idea. I don't know if it's patented. It's somebody's like idea, but like coaching, content to coaching, coaching to content.
Yes.
Because literally people want to hear, how are you coaching people?
Right.
How are you? So I'm like literally making posts where I'm like, how are I supporting my clients this week? This client came to me with, she had a flop launch. What are the things that we looked at? What are the metrics that I suggested she looked at in her social media? This is what I suggested she did. Because then people are like, oh, I would have loved to have somebody telling me that.
Or whoever relates to, because this is also storytelling. It's not just generic. Like if it's just, oh, here's 3 tips to do blah, blah, blah. Like people are over it. Like they need to be able to connect and relate to the story. Yeah. And I think it's so important. I've even done some coaching calls on like Riverside. Yeah. And then turned those into content.
Oh my God, that's so powerful.
You can also set up your phone to record like just you, right? Coaching.
So I don't know if you use Fathom. Do you use Fathom? Okay, so Fathom is like, like Otter AI or whatever. Like it's a transcript. But the thing is that you get to see the video and then you have all the transcript at the bottom. You can search for words. Yeah. Like it's boom.
Well, that's this is good. Let's talk about like efficient content, because I think people get in their head, they make excuses, right? Like, oh, well, I don't have a studio. I don't have an editor. I don't have this. I don't have that. Blah, blah.
I don't have any of that.
Right?
Guys, I don't have any of that.
You don't need that. You just need to capture what you're already doing, which is what you're saying. And then you turn that into content.
When I walked in today, I did a video of me opening the door. Yeah.
And
with
was that challenging? No.
It was that. And then your people were here.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then people say they don't know how to create content. And I'm like, you just need to keep it top of mind. I think that's where we train ourselves.
You're creating the story that it's hard in your head.
Exactly.
Where we create a story that says,
everything is content.
Everything is content.
Do you remember there was a song going around, everything is content?
I want to get like shirts made that, because I feel like I say this all the time, all day. I'm like, oh my gosh, that should be a video.
Yeah. But like, or for me, like I say all the time, like, you are the fucking content.
Yeah.
Like, but another tip for people is how can you thread that to what you sell?
Right. Okay.
Right?
Tell us how you do that.
So I'm gonna give you a really good example. This morning I was at the gym. This happened. Like, you can go look at my stories from today.
Okay.
I was at the gym and somebody that I know saw me, did a video of me, and sent it to me. She was like, I thought this would be really good content, and I was suffering at the gym. I was at the hip thrust thing, and I was suffering. My face was like, and immediately I thought, this is just like fucking business. People are throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I'm gonna tell you why I thought that. Like, they're doing one strategy today, they're posting about one thing today, one thing tomorrow. People have no idea how all those things are related. Well, I started a new workout routine where it's been a month now, and the coach was like, okay, I want to know what was your weight when you started, and what is the weight, not my weight, but the weight that I was lifting.
Okay.
Well, it's significantly higher because I'm doing the same exercises. And every single week, we're adding 5 to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So from a month ago, we're talking like I'm lifting like maybe 20 pounds more. I'm 5'2", by the way. I'm like literally
Me
like,
too. Well,
right?
5'1.5". Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God. This is just the problem with people not having a reputation, because they're talking about all these random things, which, yes, you guys, we want you to talk about you. Yes, you gals, we want you to talk about you, but it needs to be tied
to what you do.
To what you do and why is it relevant to your audience.
Right.
And like, I made this story of me on the thrift house, and I was like, this same exercise 4 weeks ago, I couldn't even lift it with, with no weights.
Right.
When you keep doing the same thing, you get better at it.
Yeah, you got to put the reps in.
Exactly. Is get and how something that I do every day, which is going to the gym, I'm tying it to what I do. And I was like, if you want to learn how to do this, if you want to learn how to tie your life, who you are, what you stand for, what's important to you, to what you sell, and do it with heart, sign up for my personal branding bootcamp. Right. It literally, that's what I do.
And that's an authentic sell too. And just, it's service. Like, if this is something that you want to do, because that doesn't feel like sales, right?
No.
Because I think people associate sales with being manipulative, which it's not. Or
it could be.
But like in this case, it's not, because we genuinely want to
I
serve
honestly
and help
think
people.
that manipulative sales are dead. People can smell that from...
Well, I think you can feel energy. Like, that's what I always say. You can feel it. So, if you don't, and that's why content that is forced and it's not you, and you're trying to be someone else, it doesn't do well, because people can feel that. They can feel that it's not you.
I actually, this is another tip, is I recently stopped scrolling.
Okay.
For a while. I'm like, I am restrained myself from scrolling. And the reason for that is, and I was telling you earlier, and I have no problem, I'm an open book. I was getting in my head. I was like asking, like, is my content good enough? It's like,
even after you've done what you've done.
Yeah.
I think this is important for people to hear too.
Yeah, and I actually think, so let's actually, I'll tell you the story. I have no problem. Like, so last year we made 300K. We had this amazing event. It was when I truly started speaking on stages and like being invited, like to speak on stage. Not just me being like, hey, can I speak at your event? Which is totally valid. I still do. But like, literally people be like, I had my mentor not only asking me to open for her event, but also keynote.
I love that. That's my dream.
Literally, they were like, I really want you to come speak at my event. And it was just like mind blowing. This was somebody that not only she was my mentor, but she was like, your energy is contagious. Like everything you have to say, like you're magnetic.
You are.
And all the things happened last year. And I mean, they started happening 3 years ago.
Sure.
But last year it was like
yeah.
And it felt so amazing. Like there was
such a high.
It was such a high, and it felt flowy. I mean, yes, I was busy, but it felt flowy. And then at the beginning of this year, I was faced with a lot of personal stuff that then I started getting on my head. And I told you, I mean, stuff with my mom and stuff that I already thought I worked through.
Right.
And it affected me on my business in ways that I was actually very surprised. I was in shock. I was like,
yeah.
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And I had to go back to the drawing board. And one of the things, I think, because my inner world was trembling, I was being influenced by a lot of the things that I was seeing.
Okay.
And I was like, I need to stop scrolling because I don't need to sound like anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't need to sell like anybody else. I don't need to talk about like anybody else. And the algorithm, of course, is showing me a lot of things that are similar to what I do.
Sure.
It's just the way it is. The way it is.
Right.
So I'm like, nope, no scrolling for me. So I spend time. I connect with my community. I post. I talk to my people, the people that like you, right? I go on the DMs. I respond DMs, but I do not scroll. And I cannot even tell you how much peace I have in my heart now. For somebody that is new, this may not be the best. And I want to say this because there is moments and times for everything.
Sure.
You have to spend time on the platform creating community.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot like post and ghost. Like that's not how it goes. It ain't gonna fucking work. Yeah. Right? So I'm still there. I'm building community. I'm talking to my people.
But you're intentional with what you're consuming.
I actually truly muted some people that are amazing. It's not personal.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes as business owners, as content creators, as personal brands, we need to protect our thought leadership. And we protect our thought leadership and not letting everybody's thoughts come into our world, because then you don't even know if it's you or it's somebody else's.
That is a really important thing. I think it's a great point that you bring up, because there's so much information, which is fantastic, like, because we can learn anything and be inspired. But you have to be very intentional and selective about who's in your ear, like at all times. Because if you have, and I think this for me and a lot of the people that I work with here, and our clients, because that's the community we attract, that's where faith comes in. Because when you consult with your creator, let's just say, then you're able to have more discernment for who you should listen to and who you shouldn't.
Oh my God, I love this, because maybe I'm not such like a faith person, but I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah, which I think it's all the same
and
to me.
To me, it's the same. Like silence is such a, for somebody that for years and years and years and growing up, like I was always constantly like, you know, I was the kid that everybody thought had ADHD and like, you know, like this or whatever. Silence is my most precious time of the day. Yeah. Because and I journal, and I'm like, I need it, like I need water, because that's when I realign to my thoughts, to what I stand for, and even the whole be you, right? Like the be you. There is so many people talking about that, but I can only talk on the way I talk about it. Right. And that's okay. Right. And so many times I'm like, nope, I don't need to. I love others people stand on it, but I only need to hear to mine so I can attract the people that need me. There is people out there that need it in the way I can teach it, and there is people out there that need it the way somebody else can teach it.
Absolutely. I mean, even you look at us, right? Yeah. Like, because we essentially teach the same thing, just for a different audience. Yeah. Right. And maybe even some people, I mean, because
I
we have
there's
women
probably,
too.
yeah, overlap.
So, but yeah, there's enough for everyone. First of all,
can we talk about that for a second? Like the feeling that there is billions of people in this world.
There's not, just because if they go to you and not, that doesn't mean there's not enough for me, right? Like it's completely ridiculous.
I was at an event yesterday and they were saying there is 17,000 realtors in Las Vegas alone.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, and I don't even like, my niche is not even like real estate, but like my niche is service providers. But I'm like, even if it was like, I couldn't even serve a 1% of that.
Yeah. Right.
Like, are we crazy? Like,
I know it's perspective is huge, you know, when you just stop and think like, it's crazy. And that's what stops people from sharing.
Okay.
Oh, it's oversaturated.
Okay. Yeah. And sorry. How many of you there are? Sorry.
One.
No. Yeah. There is no oversaturated.
Yeah.
There is only one of you. Sorry.
Right. That's what I always say too. I'm like, there's only one you. So you really don't have any competition.
Yeah.
As long as you embrace
who you are.
Yeah.
You know what? It's awesome. So somebody asked me one time, but everybody's talking about that. Like, and I believe this person pivoted, but at the time she was in real estate.
Yeah.
She was like, but everybody's talking about that. What makes it the way I say it different? I'm like, you are saying it.
Yeah.
If you are just repeating what somebody else is saying, that's a problem.
Right.
But if you filter it through your opinions,
yes,
and you filter it through your lens, in this particular case, she is a mom, you know what I mean, all the things, and I'm like, you are going to pick homes, locations, whatever it is, from a completely different perspective.
Totally.
Than somebody else.
I mean, as a realtor myself, and during the pandemic, that's when I, got on TikTok. I was not posting about real estate, right? But I did get a lot of clients, real estate clients, through showing up and building my personal brand. I would make videos on like marriage humor and like being a mom. Like,
I remember that.
And I had so much fun doing it. And, but what would happen was when people would reach out, I would ask like, well, why did you want to go with me, as your realtor? And they would say, well, you just seemed like I could ask you questions and I wouldn't feel stupid. Like you were very approachable. Yeah. And so I felt comfortable to, reach out to you.
Yeah.
Now
you felt like you were a human?
Yeah. And so, but I attracted the people that would appreciate that, because I'm not for everyone. There's some people that maybe would want like a very rigid, analytical approach, which if you want that, you don't want me, I'm from the heart, and that's just the way that's just who I am.
Yeah, that's who, but that's just like me, right?
Now, do we have strategy? Sure, of course.
But that's kind of like we talked earlier. Like if you want a coach that it's going to be like cushy, and like
you don't want me.
I mean, I can't. I'm sorry, because I see you as a full, capable human, and I don't feel sorry for you.
Nope.
I don't feel sorry for anybody.
I agree with you.
I don't feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for you.
Take
because
accountability.
Yeah, because I am here to elevate you.
Right.
And I cannot elevate you. I cannot rise you if I don't call you out.
Right.
I can do that with a lot of grace.
Yeah, when you learn how to accept feedback and give it. And I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, what I wanted to say is when you feel, whatever, imposter syndrome, all these things, lean into the people you're helping. Like I always say to someone, or my clients, I say, think of someone that you have helped.
Yes.
And tell me their name. Like, what is their name? I don't care if it's that you gave them advice. Like, I don't care what it is, but how did you help them to think differently? And, they were really grateful. Like, and then you think of that person. And then before you film your video, you just talk to them.
I even told people, like, say their name in your mind.
Yeah.
And then talk to them.
Because
like that, I do that all the time.
That's what real service is.
Literally, I do that still till this day in my videos. If you've seen, my videos are not really curated. My videos are not like super pro. Yeah. Like I do videos.
I honestly don't think that matters.
I actually enjoy doing videos the way I do it. Yeah. We all show up in different ways. And I think that this is another thing I tell people, like, what do we enjoy doing,
Right, 'cause
right?
that's what you're going to do consistently.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you enjoy writing, and I get it, like some people are better at writing, and of course like most platforms are all about video, but can you have B-roll video and put what you wrote on top, right? Like, come on,
If that
that's a
works for
copy
you.
paste.
Yeah.
That's a copy paste. And I think that people like are constantly overthinking.
Oh yeah.
And the other part of like not scrolling, sometimes this is kind of how I teach people how to do market research. I'm like, okay, for like a week, you're gonna go look at your competitors. So whoever you think in your niche you aspire to be.
Right.
And I want you to consume all their content, look at their website, look at their colors, look at what they're talking about, look at everything and write it all down, write what you love. And now write where do you see a gap.
Right.
You see a gap. Where do you think this person should be talking about this? This person should be talking about that. Oh my God, I can't believe maybe you watch a video and you're like, oh, I wish they would have touched on X, Y, and Z.
Right. That's good. That's the content.
That's your content.
Right.
Because that's where you, instead of trying to be them,
Yeah. You have your perspective. Yeah.
your perspective on the same thing. And then after a week, the floodgates close and you're not allowed to scroll anymore. You can scroll all you want. You can do all the research. You're going to write it down. And then we go and we turn around and we work on you.
Right.
Right? Like we're like, okay, so now you have all this perspective, all the things that nobody's talking about in your industry that you obviously caught because you already have that opinion. And I think that's the problem. People don't know their opinions because there is no contrast. Right?
Yeah.
So you do need to look at stuff in order to have opinions.
Right.
But once you already have them, now you don't need to be comparing yourself because that's something that happens. We talked about awareness earlier. That comparison psychologically, like it's happening. You're scrolling, right? And you're comparing. So if you are feeling triggered, it's the moment to take a break. Like, I don't know you, but I actually have a second account.
Oh, okay.
That is not my business, where I actually scroll for things that have nothing to do with my business.
Okay.
Because I do enjoy scrolling for clothes, or I'm a triathlete. I love scrolling and looking at other triathletes, right?
Sure.
Like the Ironmans and all this stuff. But I don't want that stuff on like clogging my business feed. Yeah. And honestly, I don't even post on my other account. I used to post when I was doing triathlons, and I'm like, no, when I'm racing, I'm posting on my business account. People love it.
Oh.
So
you can come in. Lauren, will you get some behind the scenes? We're gonna wrap up. What time is it? Oh my gosh, yeah, we're gonna wrap up.
We were like, we need to wrap up.
We were just in the flow, but I didn't realize what time it was. We're going to see a friend of ours that we work with. Yeah. After work. So anyway, we'll keep wrapping up.
I don't know what I was saying, but
oh gosh, now I don't remember. Oh, the comparison basically, and just the awareness around that.
So I have this other account because I still want to be able to enjoy social media.
Right.
Now, this is the cool stuff that you start seeing things or ideas or whatever in other industries that maybe are not yours, that you can bring into your industry without being clogged or without having that influence that then you're like, well, was this me? Was this my idea? Without copying people in your industry, because you don't want to be copying.
No, absolutely not. I know. And I think that's what's hard for people is that when, like you said, when they're doing the market research, it can almost be a blockage, right? Because then it's like, I don't even know what is my opinion because now I've just got all of these people and now I can't even think about what is my opinion.
But I'm always telling them like to go there with like a critical eye. I mean, okay, what do you think he can do better? Or what do you think she can do better? What do you think she could talk about that would be helpful?
Sure.
Right? And then they're like, oh, that's such a great exercise. Yeah. Because then they start realizing we all have opinions, girl.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you and me have opinions, but
yeah, we're very opinionated. So what would be what would be your tip for if someone's watching and let's just say this person is posting, like they have been showing up, but they feel kind of stuck and they don't feel like they've really created like a community. Yeah. Like they show up, they put in the work, but there's no, real engagement yet.
Okay.
What would you say to them?
I'm going to disclose something. I don't believe on just building your business in social media. I just threw a bomb.
Yeah.
Because even as we were talking earlier, we met on Instagram, then we met in person.
I know, randomly.
Right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing. My whole business, every invitation, everything has been through building relationships.
Yeah.
So I think that people are thinking that they're going to go on social, they're going to post and goes like we were talking earlier, and they don't have community because they're not talking to people. They're not truly being of service. So your videos can be amazing. And I don't know you, but like for me with the podcast, right? My talking head videos, if I'm not telling any story at the bottom, nobody
like
cares.
whatever.
Nobody
Yeah.
gives a shit.
Right.
Right? Like people, like they're good for volume,
Sure.
but nobody cares about those. People
Yeah.
care about the stuff that like
Yeah.
is showing your personality.
Yeah.
But then on the back end, I'm networking. I'm doing networking Zooms. Like my program, for example,
You're doing lives. You were doing lives.
we
with
were
other
doing
people.
live. We
Yeah.
were doing
Yeah.
lives for how long? And we were like connecting, right? Like I go out and I look at people that are doing better than me, and I'm like, I would love to have you on my podcast.
Yeah.
And these are scary asks.
Right.
These are like people that have 100,000 followers, like whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to bring.
That's where, going back to the beginning of what our discussion, you talked about being courageous, and that's a big piece to being yourself.
But I can't even tell you like how many invitations, not only to podcasts, but like to do trainings on people's programs. Like I have gotten just from reaching out to somebody for their podcast.
Right.
I go on their podcast. They're like, oh my God, girl, you're awesome.
Yeah.
They don't do anything around personal brand. They're like, do you want to do a training inside of my program? I'm like, yeah. And that's how a lot of my clients end up in my program. Right. So
it's all relationships.
another thing that I would say, because a lot of my clients are where you just described, is they don't understand the correlation between content. I'm actually going to rephrase that. Posting and content.
Okay.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
Posting, you posting for posting
You're
or
just
actual
doing,
content.
Right.
Content. What am I going to post today? Again, that threads or goes back to what I sell. What am I going to post today that can help somebody like say, oh my God, this chick is awesome, right? Like, oh, I want to know more. How can I work with her? Like it's speaking to my soul.
Right.
So that's one part of the equation, posting versus content. And the other one is the building of the community and having the right messaging, saying the things that you need to be saying in the right way.
Yeah.
Like I call this inside of my program, your personal brand power message. Okay. Right? It's not just your personal brand, but it's your personal brand power. You claiming your power.
Yeah.
And putting that into messaging.
Which I find that, and I don't know if this is what happens when you help people get there, but oftentimes it's like the failures and the mess of what you went through, to get to where you are. Yeah. That's the powerful message.
It's always there. Yeah. And that's like, today I came here and I led with the story of me being a bartender. When I first started, I didn't want to tell anybody I was a bartender.
Because you were like ashamed of that, or it would affect your credibility.
I thought that it was going to affect my credibility. When I know in my heart now, number one, I was branding people at 19. That's like, we already talked about that. But the other thing, one of the reasons why I think that I can read people all the way I read them is because I spent 20 years behind a bar.
Yeah.
Like,
I know, and I was a barista too. So
right?
similar.
Yeah. So
you get to see all kinds of people.
But also you can see their body language. Yeah. You can see, there is so many things that I didn't realize I understood. Yeah. Until I actually owned it. Right. And that what I would talk about when it's the person that, your personal brand power message is like, just like me understanding that I'm like, I can see your whole umbrella of your brand just by talking to you. Yeah. Yours is you. How do you do something differently? Why are you different? Right. Because people are not looking for a better service provider, or I want a better realtor. I want a better, no, they want, okay, that shit didn't work. I need to do something different, right? Like you don't want to be the second option for somebody.
Yeah. And it's just like who speaks to you, like I was saying, there's a lot of people that have accents that have insecurity about that to show up online. Like you are going to speak to them, right? Yeah. Because you have embraced
yours. It's crazy.
And I love that.
I really don't attract
People with accents?
I don't.
But I hear that
It's
a lot.
crazy.
I hear that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would think you would attract them. But that's so interesting.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I don't.
Wow.
I don't think that.
To me, though, it just like makes you more fun.
I mean,
but I don't know. That's just my perception.
You know what? I kind of like stop hearing my
well, you don't hear it, right? It's your voice.
But like at the beginning, when I started doing the podcast, I was like, oh gosh. I was like,
no,
oh
I just
gosh.
think I have always like thought it was so fun and then you like cuss a little, you know, here and there.
A lot.
And it's just like fun and I don't know, it's vibrant.
So one of the things when we talk about embracing, right? So my husband always tells my son, Mom doesn't know how to talk without the F word. So that's like a joke in my house. So the first event that I hosted and I was speaking, I was like, how can I bring this? And I made a sign that said, I walked in and I had a sign that said, disclaimer, I don't know how to talk about without the F word.
Yeah.
And everybody was like dying.
Right.
And my husband was like, I can't believe you actually did that. I'm like, that is literally me.
That's literally you embracing.
That embracing who I am. I truly don't know how to talk without the F word. It has gotten better as my vocabulary grows or whatever. But like literally, like I think that the F word was kind of like my way of filling up the gaps for a long time of when I didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, hey, if people don't like that, then that's okay.
Question again, right? Going back to being you uniquely and owning your stuff. I had somebody look at my website one time. It's like, if I was you, I would totally take. I actually say there was something that says becoming you, more you. I can't remember. This was the first website ever, but it was something like AF, like as fuck.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the copy, the F word was there. And she was like, well, if I was you, I would take that out because that can be very offensive to somebody. I was like, they're not my people.
Exactly.
Because if you come into my coaching call and I'm teaching and I'm literally being like, what the fuck, you guys? Like, this is what's happening. This person is going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to kill anybody.
But for real.
But because they are not my people. Like, that's not offensive to me. Yeah. It's like...
It's just a word.
It's just a word.
Yeah.
So, and I was immediately, I thought, well, you're not my people.
But that's the whole thing of embracing it. Because when you embrace it, you will have people that don't like you. And that's okay. Because, again, that's how you get the people, the super fans that we like to call them. So...
Let's close with one more thing about that because it just came to me, which is like, and I know it happens to everybody, and I don't know if anybody ever asked you, but like I'm gaining followers or I'm gaining my audience, but I'm also losing followers.
Yes.
And what I tell my people is like, bye Felicia. Bye Felicia. Because but not in a bad way. Yeah. The people that are there and they're not there to it makes room for people. Not only that, like if you know how the algorithm works, right? Everything is by ratio. So if all these people are there following you, they're not your people,
right?
I don't know you, but I remove people all the time.
Yeah.
Because I mean, people are like, oh, don't focus on that. I'm like, well, I want to focus on that because I want the people that actually want to see my shit to actually see it. And all these people that are following because they want to sell me something, like the VAs from overseas or the video editors or whatever. Like, I'm not talking about other service providers, but I'm talking people that I know truly they're not there to look at my stuff, right? Like, I'm like, those people are just taking space on the algorithm gods and I don't need them.
Right. No, it's true. And it's okay if you like all of that stuff is, I feel like when you show up, you can't think about all of that. Like, yes, of course, we're going to analyze metrics and stuff, of course. But like,
it's more advanced. It's more advanced.
Yes,
it's more advanced.
Like when you're just kind of getting your groove, right? You have to just keep showing up and trying different things, and that's how you find your voice, you know?
Okay, let's actually... Okay, we're never going to close this. This is going to be a two.
We have to have a part two.
We're going to have a part two. But like the thing is, though, that the more you show, people ask me how I got so rooted on my brand story and how do I know which part to tell? I'm like, I didn't come here and I was like, oh, for this podcast, I'm going to talk about this.
No. in the moment.
It's
right?
because I've told this story so many times. I practiced it. I wrote it.
But you also don't tell the same story every time, right? It depends on.
It depends on the conversation.
Yes.
Now, there is a core of things that I'm like, I know these things have been meaningful on my growth, pivotal moments, and this is how we actually put together brand stories. I'm like, okay, let's actually talk about all the pivotal moments, but you're not going to go on a podcast. I'm going to sit here and tell you a 5-page story.
No, right. You tell what is.
And the way you realize that is by doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This
is
so good. Okay, we got to have part 2 because there's just so much, you know?
Yeah, we can unpack so much.
But this has been just, it's always amazing when I see you.
Yes.
So I think the key takeaways, like if I look at you and I point out what stands out about you to me, and my experience of you, it's the vibrancy, the energy that you bring to a room, to a video. I mean, you're all in, you're unapologetic, but there's so much heart.
And I am here to help women bring that out of them.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my,
so
that
where
is
can
my.
people find you?
So on Instagram is my favorite platform, ati.g.branding, ati.g.branding. I also have a website. I have a personal branding quiz on my website, which is my name, atigreenspan.com/quiz. And it will tell you based on the 7 pillars that we use to build a personal brand, where are they? Are you a beginner? Are you intermediate? And it will give you a key takeaway. And then come say hello. Come say hello on my Instagram. I hang out there all the time. I'm not scrolling, but I am on my DMs all the time. I'm on my DMs all the time.
I love it. Yeah. And I know because that's how we built our relationship. So okay. Well, until part 2, this will be out for the day, for the night.
Yes. Thank you for having me.